Have a seat. Welcome, everybody. We're glad to have you, and we're going to have a good morning today. Today's hearing is on the quality of life for our enlisted soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians, and their families. The 5 witnesses at the table represent the highest enlisted level of leadership for their respective branches. I am pleased that we are having this hearing again as we begin the 226 cycle, because I always like to see you guys first. This group of gentlemen have an insight that is critical. This hearing is important, of great importance to the identity of areas we can be more helpful for our service members and their families. We remain committed to providing quality, high quality barracks and family housing, but military quality of life is much broader. It includes service members' work, train, and eat. It includes where their children go to school, where their families receive health care. So this is an opportunity to discuss the important connections between facilities, readiness, and quality of life. Investing in an infrastructure bolsters the military's ability to train and fight, while also ensuring our service members and their families are taken care of at home is just as important. We owe that to them. Now, before I recognize Ms. Wasserman Schultz, I'm going to tell you that about 10 days ago or so, I received a message from her. She said, "My team is playing your team." My team was Texas Tech. "And I've been bad-mouthing you for a couple of days. And you are welcome to badmouth me and my team." Being a gentleman, as all Texans are, I ignored that. Didn't say one bad word about Ms. Wasserman Schultz or her team. But I am glad that my team got beat by the national champions. That's a good bragging right. We take all the bragging rights we can get in Texas. So congratulations. You have much to be proud of. And she's obviously a fan. I now yield to Ms. Wasserman Schultz for opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what I can say is that if you look gentlemen up in the dictionary, your photo is representative of all the meaning of that word. And my alma mater and our fans have a reputation, rightfully so, for being extremely devoted and enthusiastic about our school and our school's success. I am a very proud Gator, 3 generations, 7 immediate family members that are Florida Gators. And before I begin my opening remarks, I will just tout that we are now the only Division I school that has 3 football national championships, men's football national championships, and 3 men's basketball national championships. The only one. Quite proud. Go Gators. And there are lots of SEC schools represented here on this subcommittee, so most of us root for an SEC school when our own teams are not in it, and it was fun one-sidedly sparring with you. And thank you for yielding, Judge Carter. Thank you once again for holding this essential hearing, and thank you for the years of cooperation and mutual respect in which we engage, and I know that will continue going forward. We all know the importance of the quality of life, recruitment, and retention to the military services that are this committee's responsibility. Our committee, on a bipartisan basis, has always advocated for and defended our service members' quality of life during their active duty, and I trust that will continue. But this administration's continued callous disregard for service members, veterans, and their families threatens to overturn any progress that the services have made in their efforts. The administration has fired at least 6,000 veterans across the government, including at the VA, which provides essential promised benefits to our veterans. They are also targeting deep cuts to programs across the federal government that veterans and service members rely upon, including SNAP, WIC, and financial aid, while deploying an economic strategy that has started a trade war and sent global stocks tumbling. At the Department of Defense, the plan to fire 5,400 probationary employees and the civilian hiring freeze has sent the agency into chaos, while unfairly making the lives of our service members more difficult. The chaotic rollout of this hiring freeze has also left current civilian employees in limbo and essential jobs unfulfilled, often falling to our service members to take on double duty. We have heard reports that barracks managers and sexual assault prevention teams are among those included in this freeze, which will directly harm quality of life and increase the workload of active duty service members. Unfortunately, a similar pattern of a chaotic rollout of DoD's remote and telework policy has hampered opportunities for military spouses to telework. This telework made it easier for service members and their families to adjust to frequent moves. This chaos does not make it easier for people to serve their country, and we certainly should not be actively denigrating those who do choose to serve, such as is the case with Secretary Hegseth's ban on transgender individuals openly serving in the military. This order is not only cruel and pointless, it is counterproductive to the DoD's own goals of increasing recruitment and retention by needlessly reducing the recruiting pool for reasons which have nothing to do with an individual's qualifications or whether their skills are needed by the services. Another example of this administration's misplaced priorities is its push to erase history when DoD should focus its energy on real issues like holding privatized housing companies accountable for lead paint in family housing, or addressing the deficit of housing for unaccompanied service members, not on purging websites honoring the Air Force's first female fighter pilot, who was a constituent, by the way, or World War II women's Air Force service pilots. The administration's history purge also apparently extends to the Tuskegee Airmen, as the Air Force removed training videos, including them, until public outcry forced the department to reverse course. How do these actions show service members that we value their service and the sacrifices their families make? What effect do you think these actions will have on the efforts of military recruiters across the nation? We should honor the service of those in uniform and fight for the quality of life of all of our service members. To truly improve the quality of life of those service members, we must address the continued deficiencies in barracks and privatized family housing. We must address sexual assault in the military. We must address shortages in childcare, and we must invest in the mental health of our troops. These actions are essential so that service members can focus on their important jobs, instead of worrying about who will watch their children, whether they will get sick from the mold in their homes, or whether they are safe in their workplace. This subcommittee has recognized the value of these investments on a bipartisan basis, and I look forward to working together with my colleagues again for fiscal year 2026 to address these issues. I was incredibly disappointed by the way the fiscal year 2025 process ended and the missed opportunity for this committee to make the necessary investments to build on our progress in recent years addressing quality of life projects. Nevertheless, we will be closely monitoring the spend plans DoD submits for the full year continuing resolution funding, and I want to make it clear to everyone here today, my expectation is that the services prioritize those funds in a way that delivers on the promises made in the FY25 budget requests and in consideration of the bipartisan advocacy from members of the subcommittee to invest in quality of life. The spend plans must reflect the need for and importance of child development centers, barracks, schools, and other quality of life projects. The Army's FY25 budget request contained robust funding for barracks construction to tackle the service's housing deficiencies. The Marine Corps has a comprehensive plan called Barracks 2030 for barracks investments. We cannot backtrack and sideline these types of projects. Even great plans to improve quality of life will fail if they are not accompanied by appropriate funding. Moreover, I hope the FY26 budget request, when we get it, contains a robust request for quality of life projects. I hope to hear from all of our witnesses today on how you and your service have worked since the hearing last year to address the inadequacies and oversight of privatized military housing providers, improve the maintenance of unaccompanied housing, and address the root causes of sexual assault within the military. And I want to thank the 5 witnesses for being here today, for your service, and for your valuable testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Okay, now we will turn to our witnesses. Without objection, your entire written testimony will be included in the record. I will now recognize each of you for an opening statement, and we will then proceed with questions. We start with Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Weimer. Sergeant Major.
Chairman Carter, Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz, distinguished members of this panel, thank you for the invitation to speak on behalf of the soldiers, their families, and the Army civilians who make up the all-volunteer force. I want to start off with the fact that I'm proud of everything that our soldiers have accomplished. They are fully focused and prepared to respond to their nation's call. Our soldiers remain engaged worldwide. More than 109,000 soldiers are deployed across the globe. in support of either the nation, our allies, or our partners. Standing ready, we have 74,000 soldiers serving as part of the immediate or crisis response forces. And critical to the success of those soldiers is their families. Their dedication, sacrifice, and endurance through the stress of their soldiers being away from home or prepared to deploy at a moment's notice is unwavering. The recent loss of our 4 teammates from 3rd Infantry Division in Lithuania has only affirmed this commitment. Our purpose, direction, and motivation remain aligned with our 4 focus areas. The first focus area, warfighting. The second focus area, delivering ready combat formations. The third, continuous transformation. And the fourth, strengthen the profession. My role is to ensure we're ready to fight tonight if deterrence fails, as the tip of the spear in Europe and as the backbone of the joint force in the Indo-Pacific. The Army responds in times of crisis and is ready to fight and win when the nation calls. This starts with training management. We are reinforcing the importance of leaders' obligation to provide stable and predictable training management to give soldiers and their families time to plan against life's events that, due to the nature of our mission to defend our nation and its interests, often take us away from home for stretches of time. At home station, soldiers and families expect and deserve quality living conditions. We are dedicated to improving and sustaining quality living conditions for accompanied and unaccompanied personnel housing. Equally important are CDCs. We've streamlined the hiring process to combat staffing challenges and increase capacity, as well as provide fee assistance to offset costs for installations and community-based childcare. Spouses are vital to Army readiness. Enhancing spouse employment supports military families and retention. Launching the Department of the Army Volunteer Reassignment Program and providing employment readiness programs aids spouses during PCS moves, reducing unemployment gaps and providing job predictability. In support of our exceptional family members, we are continuing to improve how our enterprise EFMP interacts with our personnel system and improves communication to ensure appropriate medical and education services are available to all exceptional family members around the world. Army installations require the right capabilities and capacity to support our formations. We're making tough decisions with our budget to ensure we transform at the speed of need, but scale is our challenge. It requires that our installations transform alongside the formations that call them home. New technology, new kit, and new equipment all matter. But if infrastructure doesn't support transformation efforts, it will negatively affect readiness. Soldiers, families, and the larger defense community's quality of life depends on and is impacted by quality, suitability, and the conditions of their living and workplaces. So far this year, we're on glide path to meet our recruiting and retention goals. Future Soldier Prep Course continues to successfully meet Americans where they're at and help them answer their calling to serve. With work still to be done, we will not let off the gas in the pursuit of reducing harmful behaviors. We're committed to strengthen the profession and expanding our efforts across the entire force. We're focused on increasing lethality, and we will be ready when the nation calls. Maintaining this focus is paramount to our success. It requires that we continue to improve quality of life for our soldiers and families. Continuous resolutions and flat budgets do not support stability or predictability that our soldiers and families deserve, and it exacerbates quality of life issues. Thank you for the work you have done to support your Army. It has been my honor to serve this past 30 years, and the impacts of your support could not be more clear. I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. We'll now go to Master Chief Petty Officer James Hornaday. I'll tell you a little story. I was at the vet the other day. A guy walks in with his dog, and it's like covered in flags and Go Navy. And I said, "What's the name of your dog?" He said, "Master Chief Petty Officer Dog. We call him Chief." I said, "You must be in the Navy."
And probably a really damn good dog, I bet you that.
Oh, a damn good dog.
Chairman Carter and Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz also is a gentleman from Texas that also happens to be from Lubbock, Texas. I I will also convey the sentiments of Judge Carter, and congratulations, go Gators, on all things there. But I will say this, is that if you look up gentleman in the dictionary, you'll still find Judge Carter's picture there published. My picture will never be there to replace that. We'll keep that one offline if you don't mind, please. And I thank you all very, very much, and as well as all the other distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and more importantly, thank you for the good work that you do on behalf of our sailors and their families. Our Navy's strength, grit, and professionalism continue to ensure the security and prosperity of our nation. And sailors perform best when they are focused on warfighting, knowing their families are well supported, and we appreciate Congress's ongoing efforts to improve their quality of life. However, budget constraints since 2013 have hindered consistent support, creating uncertainty for our service members. To grow our Navy, we need a stable defense budget that invests in the sailors, their families, and a culture of continued service. When we invest in our Navy, we remain unmatched, and history shows this from the Great White Fleet to the Cold War. I urge Congress to continue investing in our Navy to strengthen our lethality and maintain our platforms and to take care of our warfighters. Improving quality of life is crucial for our sailors and their families. And four key areas that require attention: increasing access to medical care, supporting families with employment and child care, investing in housing, and ensuring the professional and academic development of our warfighters. Access to quality medical care is essential to maintain an all-volunteer force. While progress has been made, funding shortages in the military health system and the Defense Health Agency continue to affect care and provider recruitment. And when care isn't available inside our military treatment facilities, we rely on the civilian networks, but limited resources have impacted care delivery, provider recruitment, and TRICARE's ability to compete in the civilian insurance market. TRICARE's reimbursement rates based on Medicare rates are often too low, and delayed claim processing has damaged our trust in civilian partners. The Navy is committed in supporting the Defense Health Agency, and we are working to improve civilian hiring, recruiting, and salary competitiveness. I ask for your continued support in fully funding the military health system and finding innovative ways to ensure our Defense Health Agency's funding doesn't compete with our warfighting priorities. Our military families are crucial to our service members' success. We recruit the sailor, but we retain the family. And my wife, while she may not have come in my sea bag, she has certainly helped me carry that thing for many years. And we must continue to support in our families as they support us. Many families, especially service members, rely on the dual income for financial stability. And with your help, we can assist them in finding that balance. Continued support across the federal enterprise to expanding employment opportunities for all military spouses will help provide continued career growth and maintain financial stability, especially during those PCS moves. Another vital resource is quality child care. Investments in child and youth programs have made a significant impact, and I thank you all for that. Increased funding for child development program facilities has reduced our Child Development Center wait list to an all-time low for the last 21 years, and expanded fee assistance has allowed families to choose quality child care when CDCs are not available. However, shortages in facilities and staffing remain challenged. I believe that combining our CDC projects and fee assistance based on local need will address child care shortfalls, and if we approach child care as a department-wide issue rather than service-specific, we can solve it even more effectively. I thank you also for the support of basic allowance for housing for our junior enlisted sailors. That will allow our junior sailors on sea duty to either live in unaccompanied housing or rent locally, and that will improve their work-life balance. The enhancement of the military housing privatization initiative to expand public-private venture projects for both the Hampton Roads and the San Diego region will provide an additional almost 12,000 beds. I believe this will rapidly increase our sailors' quality of life and allow leadership the flexibility needed so that every sailor has the appropriate separation of work and home life. I know Congress is invested in improving not only our unaccompanied housing, but also our family housing. and I look forward to continuing to work with this committee in accomplishing this goal. Technical skills alone, though, don't make an exceptional warfighter. Professional development and continuing education are equally vital. Education empowers our force and gives our sailors the need to outthink and outfight any challenge. Enlisted leadership development is building more capable, confident leaders through a lifelong learning continuum. It starts early in a sailor's career and grows with them into senior leadership. I urge your continued support for enlisted education, investments in enlisted leader development, and the United States Naval Community College, as they are essential to enhancing readiness and producing agile, innovative, and lethal warfighters. I am honored to serve alongside warfighters who stand ready to defend our homeland, support our allies and partners, and protect the American way of life. As we navigate challenging budgetary decisions, it is essential that we continue to properly equip, train, and position our force to fight and win. Equally important is recognizing that quality of life directly impacts warfighter readiness. Expanding access to medical care, strengthening family readiness, and ensuring sailors have a clear separation between their home and work life are vital to developing a force that is smarter, stronger, and truly valued. I thank you all and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chief. Excuse me. Now we'll hear for Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Carlos Ruiz.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it. First, if I could acknowledge my beautiful bride to the left of me, one seat back.
You did real well, boy.
It's for my own safety, sir. A former Marine herself of 22 years and a champion for spouses and single parents throughout the force. So with that, good morning, Chairman Carter, Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for this opportunity to work together for the well-being of our service members and their families. Marines today stand ready to support and defend the Constitution. Looming threats and global crises remain ever present, and America looks to us to defend, protect, and when needed, violently execute. We do not ask for the task to be made easier, only for the resources to do it well. We are here today to ensure that Marines are trained, housed, and equipped in a manner befitting their 250 years of excellence. Despite the challenges faced in recruiting the past few years, the Marine Corps never compromised on standards. We uphold the rigorous qualifications demanded by a warfighting ethos. We do not lower the bar. We challenge America's best to rise to it. Last year, the Commandant deliberately increased the number of recruiters across the nation. This investment in both quality and quantity is not without cost, but it is necessary to ensure the long-term strength and readiness of our force. In FY24, the unbeatable work of our recruiters, along with historically high retention rates within the force, resulted in the service achieving its required end strength. The message is clear: Marines love being Marines. Over the past year, I have seen tangible improvements to infrastructure across the Corps, but we are not done yet. The Commandant and I remain committed to the Barracks 2030 plan. In 2024, we repaired or renovated 11 barracks, and in 2025, we identified 12 more for upgrades. Together, these projects affect over 8,000 Marines. Multi-year investments into where Marines and their families live continue across our bases and stations in the U.S. and overseas. It is what Marines deserve. Warfighting excellence is not built in isolation. Rather, it is fostered through programs and resources supporting Marines' physical, mental, social, and spiritual development across a range of initiatives. So to that end, we are implementing Marine Corps Total Fitness, a network of support for Marines and families that addresses readiness and resilience in all stages of service. Every element of this program builds on our foundation of discipline, self-reliance, and purpose larger than self. I'm excited about the strides we've made so far, and I'm looking forward to its expansion and its growth. Marines' strength and resilience fortify them from the inside, while individual combat equipment protects them from the outside. The rapid evolution of warfighting technology requires us to modernize our gear, while the timeless principles of war dictate that we preserve our battle-proven legacies. As a result, our personal protective equipment must protect Marines not only from enemy fire, but also from emerging threats. In our push to modernize platforms and weapons with the latest technologies, the protection of our most important asset must be counted among those investments. The Marine Corps is not just a branch of service. It is a promise that no matter the odds, no matter the fight, Marines are ready, willing, and able to answer the call. That is the standard, that is the expectation, that is the reality that has defined the Corps for 250 years. Marines will always be the reason America's enemies fear what awaits them on the other side. I look forward to working with you to ensure Marines have the resources they need to win, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Now we'll hear from Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, David Flossie.
Chairman Carty, Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz, distinguished members of the subcommittee, I'm honored to join my fellow service senior enlisted advisors providing testimony today. While there's always work to be done on this important subject, make no mistake, your Air Force is the most lethal and ready flying force in the world. I humbly represent more than 670,000 total force airmen who remain ready to deliver air power anytime, anywhere. Thanks to each of you for your commitment to the quality of life of our service members. We need our airmen laser focused on lethality and readiness, and your support allows us to execute our important mission. Today, we confront strategic adversaries who are contesting every domain while intimidating and coercing our allies and partners around the world. China is aggressively expanding their lethal capabilities, while Russia, Iran, North Korea, and a variety of non-state actors continue to threaten American interests around the world. In the face of this complex global strategic environment, we rely on our greatest strength, our airmen, to outcompete our adversaries. Since I last testified before this committee, our airmen have been busy repelling complex Iranian drone and missile attacks against our allies, disrupting and defeating Houthi attacks on international shipping, and providing humanitarian assistance to victims of natural disasters at home and abroad, all while transforming our force to successfully execute our mission in contested environments. We cannot afford for our airmen to be distracted by inadequate housing, lack of access to health care and child care, or other quality of life issues. Years of continuing resolutions and budgetary uncertainty required your Air Force to manage increasing risks, creating challenges for our airmen. We ask for your support in overcoming these difficulties to ensure our airmen can focus on their main thing, defending this great nation and our way of life. While there are several quality of life issues to discuss, I'd like to highlight a few specifically. Dorms, access to health care and child care, and pay and compensation, which all directly impact force readiness. When it comes to dorms, we continue to focus our resources in this area. For our most junior warfighters, we've dedicated more than $1 billion across the FYDP to building dorm capacity where shortfalls exist, while also improving existing dorms. Thank you for your continued advocacy on this topic. In addition, there are challenges in accessing healthcare services impacting our force readiness, particularly specialty and mental health care. We're committed to working with the Defense Health Agency, and we're working hard on this in our department as well. Our service members are benefiting from the Wingman Guardian Connect program, which focuses on building connections, detecting risk, and promoting protective environments for our junior enlisted force. We're dedicated to supporting the mental well-being of our airmen and removing any stigma associated with seeking help when our airmen need it. Force readiness is also impacted by available child care. We continue to find ways to expand access to safe, affordable child care options and support programs. Additionally, the department is working to further support families by improving spousal employment opportunities through reimbursement initiatives for both relicensing and small business startup costs due to relocation. With respect to pay and compensation, recent increases in military pay will especially help our junior tier, and we need to address compression in the military pay table for our NCOs to ensure they are properly compensated for their leadership responsibility and technical expertise. I've served as your Chief Master on the Air Force for just over a year now. In that time, I've traveled across the globe to connect with our airmen and to see firsthand the barriers they face in accomplishing the mission. I've learned no matter how much we work to improve quality of life, we will not get the desired effect as an Air Force if we don't focus on excess infrastructure. While it may not seem directly related to improving the quality of life of our airmen, I assure you it's directly tied. Over the past 30 years, we've eliminated 60% of our fighter squadrons, 40% of our end strength, but only 15% of our installations. Today, 30% of our infrastructure is in excess to need. It all requires funding and manpower to maintain, but provides no benefit to the mission, our airmen, or our nation. Divesting, consolidating, and/or reallocating this infrastructure will free up funding to improve quality of life and the quality of our service. We must continue to leverage every option to ensure the quality of life for our airmen is commensurate with the responsibility of protecting this great nation. I want to thank this subcommittee for its unwavering support on these and many other important issues. Our airmen, backed by their families and communities, stand ready. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chief Master Sergeant. And now we'll hear from Chief Master Sergeant John Benavati. Is that close?
Pennsylvania.
Benavati.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Carter, and Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz, and distinguished members of this subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the critical importance of investing in the well-being of our guardians. With the United States Space Force now in our 5th year, the nation faces an increasingly complex global security environment. The Secretary of Defense has been clear that to meet these challenges, we must restore the warrior ethos. We must rebuild our military. We must reestablish deterrence. Nowhere is this more critical than in the space domain, where our guardians stand as the invisible front line, ensuring our nation's continued access to and freedom to operate in the space domain, the very foundation of space superiority. The Space Force was established to deliver space superiority and address the needs of our joint warfighters in a rapidly evolving national security environment. The space domain has become increasingly competitive and contested. So our greatest risk is to remain with the status quo. While the Space Force represents only 3% of the defense budget, it underpins joint force capabilities across all domains. During the April 2024 Iranian missile attack, members of the 2nd Space Warning Squadron provided missile warning data that helped enable the interception of incoming projectiles and minimize casualties. Right now, Guardians from the 18th Space Defense Squadron are tracking over 47,000 orbiting objects, an 89% increase since the service was established, ensuring space situational awareness for safe operations, including support to NASA and the International Space Station. Tonight, members of the 2nd Navigation Warfare Squadron will be providing highly integrated position navigation and timing capabilities to the agricultural, finance, and transportation sectors of the United States economy. As our Space Force truths state, the U.S. Space Force's capabilities are critical to the joint force and the American way of life. Maintaining our advantage in space demands commensurate investment in our most critical system, the human weapon system, our guardians. Service members do not choose to stay in uniform because it's easy. They do so because it's challenging, but they understand the rewards of service are priceless. Quality of life investments that elevate the journey will attract and retain the talent the nation demands and the department needs. This is why I look forward to working on the recommendations made by the 14th Quadrennial Review of Military Compensation, updating basic allowance for housing methodologies, improving cost of living allowance calculation policies, and raising the regular military compensation benchmark are all vital initiatives to military life. I also believe the recommended holistic quality of life review will provide informed and actionable data that will improve access to child care and health care benefits, as well as advance military spouse employment initiatives. To provide a superior guardian experience, quality of life programs that elevate the journey must be coupled with quality of service investments that cultivate the warfighter. World-class training and development are crucial for our guardians, who will employ all capabilities, kinetic and non-kinetic, to ensure space control. To meet the joint forces' evolving needs and stay ahead of strategic rivals, our ability to develop the force for guardians, by guardians, must also mature. The capacity to scout, train, and educate space-minded warfighters beyond our current end strength increases will require appropriations and infrastructure investments. These initiatives will help create the future of space power and build a more lethal force for generations to come. This is particularly critical as the space domain itself is becoming increasingly dynamic. The rapid growth in global space activity, while indicative of progress, also creates new vulnerabilities. We are witnessing a concerning shift from theoretical threats in space to daily occurrences. Our adversaries are actively developing and deploying systems designed to deny, degrade, and disrupt our space capabilities, jeopardizing the very advantages space provides our nation and our allies. The complexity and scale of these threats make it clear that the Space Force cannot succeed alone. Our ability to integrate seamlessly with the Joint Force, cultivate partnerships with the commercial space industry, and strengthen alliances with partner nations will be essential to overcoming resource limitations and building a more resilient space architecture. Members of the subcommittee, 5 minutes is barely enough time to allow me to talk about the importance of quality of life and quality of service for our guardians. But if I may, I'd like to leave you with 3 key takeaways regarding the Space Force. First, the Space Force represents only 3% of the defense budget, yet underpins the lethality of joint force and safeguards the very fabric of American way of life. Second, the Space Force has operated under a continuing resolution for 51% of our existence, limiting our ability to evolve as necessary. And third, the Space Force, to maintain space superiority, needs significant investment in our growth and development, and that's imperative. I am eager to collaborate with the subcommittee to provide our guardians the tools and resources they need to succeed. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. And we'll now begin questions. These have a rough 5-minute time period on them. We'll have some slack we can cut, but more talking to my folks up here than you. But we're trying to find out some stuff. I'm going to start off. September of 23, GAO report on unaccompanied housing was a wake-up call. It detailed barracks, dormitories with unacceptable health, safety, and privacy concerns. That report included 31 recommendations that included both OSD and service level recommendations. How far along are each of your services in terms of addressing the GAO recommendations? Do you have an estimate of the cost and timeline needed to fully implement all GAO recommendations? Are there any policy changes that would help alleviate capacity shortages? For instance, would allowing single E5s in the Army and Marines to move out of the barracks, would that help? The response to barrack challenges does not necessarily require a one-size-fits-all approach across each installation. What is the appropriate mix of barracks refurbishment versus new construction? And finally, what role should public-private partnerships and enhanced use leases play? A lot of questions. Who wants to start?
Well, Chairman, I'll jump on that one. There's a lot there, but it's a great question. You're giving us an opportunity to truly let the committee know where you are. So we took the findings of the GAO report, and we're in conjunction with last year's NDAA, and really we had to do some work to truly see ourselves holistically. So our conditions index, we've been able to scrub our entire inventory, and the Army has obviously a very large inventory of barracks. And so we can truly tell you now which ones have that below 70% index. We're trying to make sure we stretch every dollar to the furthest extent available. We know where we are with budgets. And so trying unique authorities like the repair to replace that we're utilizing actually at Cavazos to, I don't want to say get creative, but to truly figure out how to get our barracks in better condition, if not full MILCON replacement, because that's the hardest of all the solutions. That's an example of one. To your E5 question, and I'll pass to my teammates. We already made this decision last year in Europe for E6s. And so E6s are authorized out of the barracks in Europe to increase barracks bed spaces. But there's issues with that. Down payments for housing off base in Europe is incredibly high. And so we had to be careful we weren't putting our single E6s in a different financial predicament. And then lastly, young E5s that want to live in the barracks are great leaders in the barracks. It's good for them, and it's also great for the privates in the barracks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, also in the Navy, we did a comprehensive review of all of our installations and all the buildings that we're using for our barracks right now, and our condition index score, we're not good. About 15% are considered to be in good condition. About 60% were considered to be acceptable, and the remaining 25% are unacceptable condition. We need a lot of work to bring all of that back up to speed. And then beginning with, as I've said before this committee in the past, we're already operating in a deficit that we have considered for many years ships to be considered acceptable government quarters for our most junior enlisted sailors that are assigned on board a ship. To remove them off the ship and into a barracks room, we're going to need even more beds. We do have a comprehensive plan and a timeline on building the necessary unaccompanied housing. The fastest path to that will not be through military construction. The fastest path through that is an expansion of our PPV programs and the pilots that we're currently operating within San Diego and within the Norfolk region. As I said earlier in my opening testimony, my opening statement, we're going to increase that capacity about another 12,000 beds in those two fleet concentration areas, and that'll probably solve the majority of our housing problems in those areas for sailors assigned to those ships. But we need to be able to expand on that in our other home ports, other fleet concentration areas, whether it's in the Pacific Northwest or in the great state of Florida, down there in Mayport, Florida. I'm looking for more ability to be able to expand on those barracks programs, and then do just as you said for the E5s. We're looking at that across the border. Where could we move people out into town and afford them housing allowance, and be that E4 and above, or E4 over 4 years, wherever we think that is most appropriate. We got a long road to go. There's still a lot of work to do. The biggest barrier to that is having a dependable budget, that we know that we can begin construction with on time, as well as everything that we need for modernization and sustainment dollars to go into those buildings. I mean, as I said in my opening statement, since 2013, we've not had a dependable budget to be for the maintenance, modernization, and sustainment of those buildings. And those buildings are in really bad repair because of that. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to say that, first off, I think I can say without hesitation, everyone on this dais is an appropriator, and we don't like CRs. I know you don't like them, and we don't like them. We do all the work, and then the work doesn't get done. They just pass all the work we've done. It's one of those frustrating things you do, because the best work is done by the Appropriations Committee in Congress. And we're the only people that get things done, and then they throw us out like the trash. I'm sorry. I'm preaching now.
I appreciate the opportunity. The GA report really spawned the buildup of Barracks 2030. We were on our way there anyway, as the Commandant came in with a very focused approach to human beings and getting after the infrastructure. So the GA report, although it focused on a few barracks, we said, no, we need to inspect every place that every Marine puts their head down to try to get some rest. And we did that. And the reports are not good. And so the Commandant put his money where his mouth is, and he got after the refurbishing of barracks. We do need help with, as Chief Flossie stated, the amount of buildings that I need to knock down. It's an expensive nature there to do. Sometimes more expensive than building a new. So while we can, we refurbish and get after what we're able to do quickly and delivering the impact to the Marines immediately, and they see that and they want to stay because they see effort, right? They may not see a brand new building in their time in the service, but at least they see that, hey, at least my buddy's getting a decent barracks. For us, it's expensive to move sergeants out in town, absolutely, especially in places like, I don't know, California or overseas. So we're very careful with that. But I think what I'll say in addition to that, Chairman, is that for the Corps, the barracks is a place where we continue to develop the warrior ethos of a Marine. So it's critical that I have 2 Marines per room, and I know they hate me when I say that, but I need them to be 2 per room, and I need the NCO down the line to ensure that they're there to check on them, take care of them, that they're not alone. It's part of the transformation process, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Your Air Force has invested more than $1 billion over the FIDEP to facility sustainment, restoration, and modernization of our dorms specifically. And thankfully, we've started in a little bit better place with our dorms on average. We have a dorm master plan that has looked at all of our facilities across the entire enterprise, and we do not have any of our dorms in failing condition today across the Air Force. We're continuing to invest in the dorms. We do have airman dorm leaders assigned, active duty NCOs assigned to each of our barracks around the Air Force. We also have had success with the MILCON appropriation on our dorms specifically. So we've got projects programmed in across the FIDEP at several of our installations to the tune of several $100 million. And what we're trying to do, much like my Marine counterpart here, is we're trying to balance excess infrastructure in locations where we have excess infrastructure that we need to get rid of so we can get it off our denominator and invest appropriately in the locations where we have capacity issues. So we look for your support there. We've done the analysis, and while it is expensive to demolish, we know it's about a 10-to-1 return on investment. So over time, it'll be a really good use of taxpayer dollars to get rid of excess infrastructure and consolidate and focus our resources on the infrastructure we really need to take care of our airmen, especially at that early stage in their careers. No huge concerns there, sir, on dorms for the Air Force, but we're continuing to focus and invest to make sure it stays that way.
Well, I like the fact you're looking at things that we can demolish, so we don't have to take care of them. We'll visit more about that.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Chief?
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. You know, a much smaller footprint than the Army and the other services on the Space Force side with the dormitories on Space Force installations. But when we looked at all the dormitories and did the condition, like Chief Flossie said, across the Department of the Air Force, we don't have any dorms in failing conditions. In fact, the dormitories and Space Force installations are 81%, which are acceptable condition, which are actually pretty good when you think about it. But the thing for us is consistent funding that allows us to maintain where we are and also to gain traction. Chief Flossie mentioned the dormitory master plan. I believe it was in early 22 when the department issued the department master plan. It was estimated about $280 million for Space Force dormitories to be risen to the 85 or above level on the building condition index. But continuous resolutions and our inability to do the planning and the funding to keep those contracts on target, on time, is always a challenge. We don't want to lose any momentum that we have with the conditions of the dormitories where our young men and women are living today. Moving forward, as I said in my opening statement, in order for the service to grow and develop, to be able to execute space superiority for the nation, we're going to have to grow in end strength, which is going to meet an increase in our junior enlisted individuals who will be living in the dorms. Right now, E1 through E4 within the Department of the Air Force. And we're going to look at lessons learned from our counterparts across the other services. Is it traditional MILCON? Is it a combination of partnerships downtown? How do we get after that to make sure that we can meet the demand of the nation, but also provide quality housing for our most junior, most vulnerable men and women who join the service?
Well, thank you. I'll now yield to Ms. Wasserman-Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to come back to your unaccompanied housing focus as well. But first, I want to focus on the privatized military family housing, because I continue to see unacceptable reports of inadequate, unsafe housing conditions provided by privatized housing providers. To highlight just one of the latest examples, Balfour Beatty is being sued by military families again. They've had 2 instances in which they have paid multi-million dollar settlements. It continues to, I mean, there's not a word, frustrate is not a strong enough word, but the fact that these contracts were so complex that it made it impossible for us, supposedly, to unwind them and to disconnect these companies who are grossly irresponsible and could care less about the occupants of the housing for which that they are required to take care of, doesn't bode well, in my opinion, for the future of oversight and care of the service members who live in unaccompanied housing either. So it really chaps me when I hear you all talking about, well, the solution to the unaccompanied housing crisis that you have is to go in the direction of more privatized housing. And sure, when they're brand spanking new and they don't have any problems, sounds great. But I want to make sure that I don't think that you should go forward with that privatized housing concept, but if you go forward with it, then you have to make sure that these are contracts that can be unwound easily and the companies can be fired and disconnected from the abuse that Balfour Beatty and others have been engaged in. So that having been said, this lawsuit even claims that Balfour Beatty officials blocked Navy personnel from inspecting houses in some cases, and that's just the latest example of that oversight of those privatized housing providers by the military services needs to continue to be strengthened. So over the last several years, our subcommittee has consistently provided an additional $10 million per year through the family housing operations and maintenance accounts for each service for the purpose of housing oversight. There wasn't that layer there, and each branch of the service has acknowledged that they dropped the ball and completely were hands off for many, many years about overseeing the companies that are supposed to be responsible for taking care of the housing that they've built and that they then care for. So it's clear that we continue to need that funding to be used for oversight purposes. And quickly, I'd like each of you to say what plans you have for the use of the funds that were available in FY25 in the CR and for FY26, presuming that, and hopefully that it will continue. Sergeant Major Weimer.
Ranking Member, thank you for that. And I, like you, have similar concerns when we talk privatized, potential privatized barrack solutions. Just want to acknowledge that up front.
Thank you.
25 years in the privatized housing, we have to take those lessons learned. We have to utilize those for any new ventures. Specifically on the Army side, that money we've been using for third-party inspections. I'm happy to actually report right now, CONUS, we are 100% complete on the privatized third-party inspections. We're now 82% complete OCONUS, and so we still have some work to do the rest of the year for OCONUS. We're predicting to be done by 26 on that, and we'll continue to use that money. Ironically, now we're inspecting third-party inspections of our government-owned housing. As a matter of fact, my wife was informed Monday that my house is getting inspected Thursday. Wednesday or Thursday, and that they need 3 hours, and she had to schedule a block time. So that I don't see that stopping. I think that accountability will continue to be important.
And is there a layer of on-site military oversight? Someone that when the company isn't calling them back, when they're not able to get in touch with someone, do you have a military layer of responsiveness? Yes,
IMCOM for us in the Army is that belly button, if you will, at every garrison across the post stations. The 100% inspection work orders amendment, that's the latest for the accountability there. And I'm happy to report now that actual people that live in those houses are sending in their own pictures of the work before the work's done. And so there's tenant involvement in this to add another layer of accountability.
Thank you very much. Master Chief?
Ranking Member, I would start by saying I really do appreciate the 3 years that I've worked with you and the relationship we've had. You've always been a very honest and upfront broker with me and I appreciate it. But more importantly, is that you've always made sure you put money, where you say that your priorities are, and you get after things. And so with this oversight, which is largely due to your efforts, we were able to hire an additional 200 employees across the Navy, first in Installation Command, to provide that type of oversight at the region level and across our installations. And then also 50 of those employees are hired by our Naval Facilities and Engineering Command to provide that type of oversight. And we are also able to then complete all of our third-party inspections of all of our PPV housing this year, and able to report that majority of them fall into a favorable condition, but that's about 50% in good, 47% in poor, and then a couple percent, in fair, then a couple percent in poor. So we'll continue to provide that type of oversight and those inspections to hopefully improve our conditions with our PPV partners. I am a proponent of renegotiating all those contracts based off lessons that we've learned. I think that our business partner would do better if we could find a way to renegotiate those contracts. I know the government would be better served, and more importantly, our families and service members that reside in those housing would all be better served. Much as we have done with our privatized unaccompanied housing projects, we took those lessons learned, when we negotiated those contracts, and how we provide that oversight to ensure that there's good occupancy rates, and that we're able to maintain the proper cash flow so that the partner has the solvency to maintain and to modernize those investments as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just stress that the chairman and I have been interchangeable over the last number of years, and we did all of those things together, and I appreciate his partnership. Chief, do you have any information on the report that the Navy was blocked from inspecting houses in some cases by Balfour Beatty?
I do not have any information about any specific allegations. I do know that both the installation commander and their teams did go through all the housing down there at Key West. Our commander of Naval Installations Command has also visited and inspected many of those homes. We did a full inventory of all those homes and determined a certain portion of them to be uninhabitable, and Balfour Beatty paid for those members to be moved and placed in other homes or temporary housing as necessary. But I don't have any other information about maybe there were some more specific allegations that I'm not aware of.
Could you look into that specific allegation for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, and I'll hold my applause for Balfour Beatty for the moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if we can continue. Sergeant Major?
Yes, ma'am. Very similar to Sergeant Major of the Army and McPon, ranking member. We also use that funding to hire oversight folks. So a little 118, I think it's the number.
Who are on site?
Who are on site, ma'am.
Okay.
We were to hire them and then get after their training. So get after their training, in addition to the third-party inspections also completed. Looking to provide a report to my chain of command here, hopefully this month. I hope that will be available.
And for those that have those positions in place, have any of you had those positions subject to the civilian or military hiring freeze thus far?
No, ma'am.
No?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Chief?
for our department, that I don't believe that is a categorical exemption, but we haven't seen any negative impact from the hiring freeze to report to you today.
But some have been frozen?
Yes, ma'am. If we have a vacant position, it's not exempt from the hiring freeze.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's any, but I'm not 100% sure that we have currently vacant positions that we're trying to hire. I can take that for the record, but I don't know if we have any that would be affected by the hiring freeze.
But only the openings? Correct. Not people who are currently serving? As far, okay. And then, just with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I think we'll probably only have one round, and I do want to ask about sexual assault, because we can't address quality of life without discussing that scourge. And the services have all made an effort to address the issue, and we know that a lot more progress needs to be made. The 2023 DoD Annual Report on Sexual Assault found a decrease in the number of sexual assault reports of 5% across services from 2022. The 2023 DoD Workplace and Gender Relations Report estimates 29,000 service members experienced unwanted sexual conduct in 2023. That represented a decrease from the last report in 2021, which included an 8.4% drop for women in the active duty force. But there was one outside estimate done by the Costs of War Project at Brown University that estimated the real prevalence of assaults was over 73,000 in 2023. That's a pretty major discrepancy. The number of reported assaults combined with the DoD prevalence data suggest a reporting rate of about 1 in 4 service members who reported their assault to DoD officials. And I asked you all last year whether changes in the number of reported sexual assaults reflect a true change in the number of assaults, or whether those changes represent changes in service members' trust in the system and comfort level with reporting assaults. So if you can each tell me what steps you and your service have taken since last year to improve your insight into the sexual assault statistics collected, and what more needs to be done so that we can know that there's trust in the system of reporting and that that we reduce the actual sexual assaults.
Thank you, Ranking Member, for that quickly. And I appreciate the discussion we had in your office
Yes,
about this
thank you.
subject. Frankly, it is a little better, but it's not good enough. As a matter of fact, I think this is one of those forever things, much like suicide, that we'll battle forever, unfortunately, but it's worth it. So our team's taken a deep dive into the Cost of War Brown survey. Our Workplace and Gender Relations survey, that's an every 2-year survey. There's some pretty consistent reporting there over time. I don't want to debate the methodology behind the Brown, but we're deep diving that. And after our discussion, right now we do see some differences in how they're comparing data, but that's like statistics. We are doing a deeper dive on that because, again, to your point, if there's some there, we need to know about it. And so that's our commitment.
Thank you.
Based off that.
Thank you. Master Chief.
Ranking Member, I'd also like to thank you for your efforts in this space. Yourself and the chairman have provided us the necessary appropriations to hire our integrated primary prevention workforce, which has been those folks that are on the ground helping us better understand and solve some of our more complex issues in this space. I would echo everything that Sergeant Major of the Army had to say in regards to the Brown report, and I would encourage any member that would look to have a greater understanding of this problem to have a briefing from our DoD SAPRO. I had a really great conversation with him about all the data and the analytics behind that data to give me a lot better trust and confidence in all the things that we're doing at the DoD level as well as across our Navy service. So in the service, we really focus on character development to make sure that we're building better people, better leaders, and better teams. And then through that, we create the right climates and cultures with which we don't have those behaviors across that culture of harm that allow for those kind of bad actors to exist inside our commands. The DoD helps us with the Defense Equal Opportunity Climate Surveys that ask all the right questions of our service members to get a better understanding of the trust, the connections, and the protective factors inside every command at every installation. Where we recognize that there are problems, the DoD sends a team out to look into those at those installations with an on-site installation evaluation that determine where we have problems in the services and need to solve what some of those problems might be. And primarily we're doing that, as I said, through leadership or through the integrated primary prevention workforce.
Thank you. Sergeant Major.
Ranking Member, thank you for that. I think it was this time last year I came to see you, and you challenged me, and I took that personally, and I'm here to tell you that concur, it's not good enough. Still, in 24, we really got after this in very different ways, I think. Using data, to your point, in our commander's course, in the way that we teach our command senior enlisted leaders before they take command, understanding the data in the command that they're stepping into and what they can do with the resources available, and the prevention folks that we've hired to get after in their own way, in their own location, a base, a station throughout the force. And this is why my initial opening comments about Marine Corps total fitness is so important to me because it's about culture. It's about developing and strengthening those protective factors that we need to inject into our young people. Just because they graduate boot camp doesn't mean that they're done. We must continue to get after the development of the force. So look forward to keep working with you. In 24, we did symposiums, forums, summits. We have not stopped getting after this issue, man, and we won't.
Thank you. Chief.
Ranking Member, thank you for the question. We continue to focus on this, and much like my colleagues, we are unsatisfied with any report of sexual assault or harassment in our service. It's counter to our culture and what we expect of all airmen in the profession of arms. We've worked really hard, and we discussed this with you last year about prevention's way better than response. We want to get to the left of this problem. So we established contracts across the Air Force in, late last year in 2024 to modernize our prevention response training, and it's updated based off of peer-reviewed research on current policies, protocols, and strategies tailored to the different leadership levels that exist across the workforce, so we can identify concerning behaviors or emerging problems before it turns into a crisis. We've worked on our training and expanding our course evaluation measures across the enterprise, including, kind of like Sergeant Major mentioned, not just in basic training or our session pipelines, independent of how you join the Air Force, but through our professional military education for both officer and enlisted. So across the entire spectrum, we're launching out that new training through our PME spectrum through 2025. We're also focused on cyber harassment and technology-facilitated sexual assault and harassment. A relatively emerging concern, but we want to ensure we've got that addressed in our training as well. So we're really focused on the prevention aspects of this. We too have the integrated and primary prevention workforce effort underway. We've got over 1,000 people assigned to our installations across the Air Force already, specifically focused on integrated resilience, primary prevention, sexual assault response. And we are on track by FY27 to fill 100% of those billets across the Air Force as we grow out that requirement that came about from the Independent Review Commission.
Thank you very much.
We're continuing to focus on it, ma'am. We appreciate your continued advocacy as well.
Thank you so much.
Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz, thank you for the question. And we spoke about this last week when we had the chance to talk. You know, a lot of the initiatives that Chief Fossey talked about are Department of the Air Force initiatives that include both the Air Force and the Space Force. And to the integrated primary IPP workforce, I think we're about over 80% of staffed right now, and we're working towards that. But of course, right, those professionals that are able to do that, the market is really tight to be able to get the right people. And I think that was a lot of the discussion, is making sure that we have the right individuals with the right training who can help lead the service out of this scourge, which is sexual assault. And I think we all can agree, right, this has no place in our society, most importantly, has no place in the 1% of men and women who serve their nation to do that. We've made a lot of strides, you know, from a Space Force perspective, and we talked about this last week. You know, for the Workplace and Gender Relations Survey, 2023 was the first time that the Space Force was separately broken out. So we did get some data from that. One of the things that was kind of heartening that I think is a good sign was that the percentage of individuals who have faith in their local leadership, who understand, that feel that they are confident that they can talk to someone and say, you know, I'm being harassed or I was assaulted, or they feel safe at the workplace, was above the average across the services. But that was just one data point. You know, we look forward to other workforce surveys to make sure that we're trending in the right direction. But it's about making sure that this is not just a training challenge, this is a leadership responsibility. And most of us, we said that, you know, this kind of training is integrated at all levels, echelons of development, but in particularly at the leadership development, whether it be squadron commander courses, senior enlisted leader courses, excuse me, and understand that they're responsible for the culture in which they allow and which they create within their organizations. And I think beyond just training, saying that we've checked the box and we have training that we're getting after it, it is holding these leaders at every echelon accountable for the culture and the climate that they are creating to make sure our service members feel safe and are safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back so that we don't have a mutiny. Thank you.
Mr. Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank all of you here this afternoon for your partnership, your responsiveness, your openness with me and my office. Thank you all for that. It's been an interesting meeting with all of you. Chief Master Sergeant Bitavania, I want to ask about STARCOM. Space Trainingness and Readiness Command exists, I understand, to prepare combat-ready space forces through the deliberate development, education, and training of space professionals, develop that space warfighting doctrine, the tactics, techniques, and procedures, and the test and evaluation of your capabilities. Now, I understand that in 2024, Space Launch Delta 45 actually set the pace for space, as you all say, and was actually the world's busiest spaceport with 93 launches. That's amazing. So can you speak a little bit to the strategic importance of STARCOM, that fact that we just mentioned, and relocating STARCOM's HQs to Florida, and the quality of life investments that Space Force needs to make investments in to make sure that we not only get those professionals in, but then we retain them as well?
Yes, thank you, Congressman. I appreciate it. Yes, 93 launches out of the 45th Space Launch Delta, and this year we're going to break 100. That's what we're going to do. And this adds to my opening comments about just how busy the space domain has become, when you talk about the number of launches out of the East Coast range that we have there. But STARCOM, Space Training and Readiness Command, as a strategic initiative moving it to Patrick, one of only 3 field commands that we have, and responsible for not only basic military training and the sessions for officers, but the technical training, the development, the exercises, the simulation, the modeling, the doctrine, is extremely important to the service, especially a little over 5 years into our journey. So partnering and having a basin decision to send it to Patrick Space Force Base and kind of join the space community that is in Florida is extremely strategic and important for us. There's a huge modeling and simulation community that's there. University of Central Florida, also the National Training and Simulation Association is in the area. But in addition to that, we have the Joint Services Warfighting and Training community that's there as well. The Air Force Agency for Modeling and Simulation is there. The Naval Air Warfare Center for Training Systems Division is there. And Army Futures Command also has their synthetic training environment, all located within an area. So our decision, and to how to put it down there, is because of the importance of training and developing future guardians for the fight and for what the nation demands of us, is going to take us to leverage the relationships, not only with the other departments, with academia, but also with the local community. Especially when you talk about right outside within Florida, Space Coast Florida as well, but very amenable and want to make sure they embrace the men and women who are coming down there. The Advon team that is there right now, part of Delta 10, is about 57 personnel, but this summer, as we start to make some moves, we're hoping to expand to about 144 personnel to stand the flag up, if you will. But in a few years, we're hoping to have almost 500 personnel, professionals that are there, building a foundation for STARCOM as we need it. The other importance of this decision and move is to allow Space Training and Readiness Command to start to invest in the talent, especially on the civilian side, who now that they know they have a location where they can move their families to, they can start to build a relationship, with the Space Force, but also build a relationship with their community. And that's why that move is extremely important, because to your point, in order for us to attract and retain the talent that the nation has to offer, we have to offer them world-class training and prepare them for the high-end fight. And that is a job of STARCOM, and we're excited about the move to Florida this year.
And listen, I will tell you, you mentioned the synergy that all creates. What's going on in Central Florida, I know the ranking member is very well of that too, very well aware of that too. It's an amazing opportunity, and look forward to that. Master Chief Petty Officer Honea, if I could talk to you, we talked a little bit about some of the TRICARE issues. On January 1 of 25, TRICARE implemented its new regional contracts And this kind of goes back to the contract issue that the ranking member brought up about making sure we have good contracts. This one is known as T5, and it's with Humana Military as the contractor for the Eastern region, and Tri-West Healthcare Alliance for the Western region. In Northeast Florida, where we have both, you mentioned Mayport Naval Basin, we also have Naval Air Station Jacksonville, which is the Fleet Readiness Center Southeast. So we have a lot of use for TRICARE in Jacksonville. That contract, as I said, began on January 21, and our family members there in Jacksonville deserve to have these providers, outside providers available. But when I see providers not being paid by DHA, myself and Congressman Bean sent a joint letter to DHA, trying to get to the bottom of what is going on with these payments. When we've got providers, one is, I think, $100,000 upside down with DHA. We potentially can lose some of these providers that our men and women need. So can you talk a little bit about how that can affect the readiness, and how can we improve TRICARE's relationship with these investors or providers? How do we write better contracts so we can force these guys to pay their bills on time?
Congressman Rutherford, I certainly cannot speak to the contract negotiation that was assigned by the Defense Health Agency and their leadership, but I can speak to exactly as you're just describing what those effects are to our people that are utilizing those services. And just as you described, as well as I described in my opening statement, that I have found many places where TRICARE is a low bill payer, and so we're having difficulty attracting new TRICARE beneficiaries, providers for our beneficiaries, as well as I have taken a number of complaints from those providers in that they're not being reimbursed on time. And Defense Health Agency, to their credit, have worked diligently with me with their contract to have those bills paid as quickly as possible. But as we're continuing through this transformation, we're finding more and more places that we're challenged with healthcare providers. And that's not just something that's unique to us inside the military service. That's everybody in our country is challenged with that. The difference being is that your sailors, your soldiers, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and their families, we don't choose where we get assigned.
Right.
We're going to get orders to the Jacksonville area, and we're going to depend on the military health system or the extended health network outside our fence lines to see to our health care needs. And when that can't happen, that's going to have detrimental effects to our family, to our family readiness, and possibly even to our military readiness, especially if we end up having to spend military readiness dollars toward making that account whole and seeing to those benefits, which are challenges that we're faced with today, sir.
Thank you very much. And, I'd love to be able to tell you what DHA's response is, but we hadn't heard back from them yet. I yield back. I see my time is up.
Mr. Bishop.
Thank you very much, Chairman Carter, Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz. Let me thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's hearing. Warm welcome to each of our esteemed witnesses, and I express my gratitude for your service to our nation. Your testimony is invaluable for the decision-making that we have to do in safeguarding the welfare of our soldiers and their families and our national security. Although a question may be directed to one of you, I welcome input from all of you with respect to the questions that I ask if you would like to comment. Last year, Congress worked with the Quality of Life panel to approve and authorize a well-deserved pay increase for the service members, specifically the junior service members. But it seems that we failed to adequately review the resources that the service members use for essential services such as child care and food programs. The pay increase moved these service members into higher pay bands, specifically for child care, and it made them ineligible for SNAP or WIC programs, essentially canceling out the good intentions of the pay increase. Sergeant Major Ruiz, how are you tracking throughout your respective service the second and third order effects of the pay raise, considering that the service is provided based on household income? I'm most interested in child care and food assistance programs.
Congressman, thank you for that question. So April 1st was the first time that young Devil Dogs got a little extra on their paycheck, and greatly appreciate that. They appreciate you for pushing that so hard. What I would say is that we're watching it closely. Initially, via the numbers, the data tells us that without any change, maybe another spousal, different kind of employment, or they get promoted again, today they would not climb no more than one bracket up towards the child care fees. That's what I have so far, sir, but as I watch this closely, I'll come back to you to see if those unintended consequences are more severe than climbing up one more. I would imagine that for E6s and above, the pay raise for them, just their annual increase, will likely jump them a little more because the pay increase is a little more substantial. So, but I'll keep an eye on that, sir, and then I'll give it to my teammates to see if anyone else has anything else.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Congressman. I would like to also add, we have the ability at the installation level to adjust those fees if there's a need. So while we're not terribly concerned with the potential to increase one bracket, it looks like it's a small number per month, under $50 per family. So it should not completely negate a pay increase. But if a family member, a service member in their family demonstrates a financial need through their chain of command, the local installation level command can adjust those fees. They have that authority to offset any financial crisis that may exist in some acute situation locally.
Yeah, we worry about the stigma or the reluctance of a member to actually approach the command with that. Let me shift gears for a moment, address this to first Sergeant Major Weimer. In your testimony last year, you stated that not receiving predictable federal funding and pay because of continuing resolutions exacerbates ongoing issues, end of quote. Add on top of this the uncertainty within the federal workforce that often places the organizations that provide critical care for our service members and their families. What's the impact in care, funding, or services in support of our military families and their families in light of the CR and the federal workforce cuts? And do you anticipate, or how are you working to mitigate the additional burden on service members and their families because of a workforce drawdown? And are there any barracks, housing, child care centers, or other projects that provide specific care to our families that will be placed on hold or delayed due to a CR, the CR? And each of you can address that if you can.
Congressman, thank you for that, and it's good to see you, and sorry we couldn't get our schedules to marry up here in the last couple weeks. So first off, I definitely have to say thank you for the 12-month CR is a little bit new territory for us, but we're grateful for some of the New Start reprogramming, some of the above threshold authority, but it is new territory for us. I don't know exactly how it's going to affect everything. We're not firing up star clusters right now on current projects. As far as some of the quality of life piece on the employee side, we're We're happy to report that our NAF employees have all been granted exceptions, and so we're hiring CDC employees. We've covered most of our medical folks. We do have some folks in our holistic health and fitness that we're sharing all our lessons learned with our Marine Corps teammates. We do have some freeze on some of our nutritionists and physical therapists, and so we're kind of in a hold. But we've been able to work well with OSD right now on the exceptions to get those people in there. I would say first and foremost, anything that affects quality of life has been one of the things we've been asking for a waiver for first. Our Director of Public Works, DPW, as you've heard us talk about it numerous times, we're short quite a few people there, and that is currently frozen. So that's another one that we're trying to understand how that affects our infrastructure and quality of life.
Sir?
Congressman Bishop, similarly, the Sergeant Major of the Army stated, majority of our quality of life employees are non-appropriated fund employees, and we're not having any issues with hiring or losing any of those employees, and it's not going to have any effect on any of those programs. Now, the loss of FY25 budget and CR, that did have a lot of effects on us. That's going to be, we're not putting shovels in the ground to build new barracks. We're not putting shovels in the ground to build new CDCs. All those things that, as Chairman Carter mentioned at the beginning, that y'all did the hard work for in appropriations in setting us that money, we're not getting any of that work done this year. And so hopefully we'll find good money in 26 to get after all those projects.
Congressman, for the Corps, I think I'll start with 6 years ago, Commandant Berger started the division of Force Design 2030. So 6 years ago, we started the process of getting really light already and getting after the platforms and things and the formations that we think are going to be needed for the future fight. And so that included our civilian infrastructure. So we're going to watch it closely. Yes, it affects, although I was able to hire a little over 200 barracks managers, I won't be able to hire additional ones anytime soon, and that's critical to maintaining the barracks that I have been able to refurbish, and the ones that are hanging on by a thin thread, I won't have that. So a Marine is instead in place, getting after the maintenance of a barracks instead of doing what they were assigned to do. I think in the recruiting in the accession pipeline, I would be concerned if the civilians that are assisting in the MEPS, in the processing of a young civilian into a Marine or any service members, if they're not there, I'm afraid that it would slow it down, the throughput, and the momentum that we gained in the last couple of years will be greatly reduced. So hopefully we get after those exceptions there.
Thank you, Congressman. The year-long, I'll echo the Sergeant Major of the Army. We're thankful for a year-long CR, I guess, only to a government shutdown. So it's not a great option, but it's better than shutting down. So we're thankful that we've got that process in place, but it is not ideal for stability and planning, especially in our major defense acquisition programs, which I know aren't the major topic here, but as the CR relates to 25 across the Air Force, that's where we saw the biggest, we've got a $3 billion top line disconnect that we have to close based off of the CR compared to the president's budget. And that a large part of that is in research, development, test, and evaluation. We've got some MILPERS concerns that we are working very hard to protect, particularly in recruiting and accession pipelines. We believe, and we are on track today to meet our recruiting goals for FY25, and we're going to protect that at nearly all costs. There is the potential that it could have some negative effects on some of our rotational forces, permanent change of station, things like that. But we have got to protect our ability to assess the best Americans that we.
And the CR compromises that?
The CR puts at risk a percentage of the MILPERS budget that we have to close. It doesn't specifically help us in any of those areas. So it then comes to the Defense Department to mitigate.
If it doesn't help, does it hurt?
It is, CRs are unhelpful, sir, in general. So
Do they
we're-
hurt or they
We're
help?
working hard to protect we're working hard to protect those foundational parts of building our pipeline. We are very thankful for a congressional plus-up we got in the previous fiscal year to robust and grow our recruiting pipeline to the tune of nearly 500 new recruiters across the Air Force. And what we don't want to lose is that momentum. So today, we have got the largest delayed enlistment program. Basically, they're young Americans that are waiting to come into the Air Force. So we put them into this thing called the DEP. And our DEP numbers are as big as they've been in over a decade. We do not want to lose momentum there. It's critical to our ability to execute the national defense strategy.
You're very diplomatic. Yes, sir.
Sir, I get paid to execute the decisions you make.
Congressman, thanks for the question. And as I said in my opening comment, unfortunately, living under a CR is, over 51% of the time as a service has been in existence, we've been under a CR. But specifically to your question in 25, especially when it comes to quality of life, like there were improvements supposed to be made at the Peterson, one of the Peterson Child Development Centers, one at Patrick. And in 25, we're looking for money to start design phase, to put money against that. We're also supposed to start doing design work on dorm improvements at Buckley Space Force Base. As we're working through the reprogramming for the budget for 25, these are all things that could be put at risk. And this is why the stability of funding is so important to the planning phase to execute, especially when it comes to quality of life initiatives, to make sure we stay on time, on target, to deliver that quality of life to our service members.
Thank you. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you first for your service. Thank you for joining us today for this important oversight hearing. Master Chief Honey, Sergeant Major Ruiz, I am proud to represent the Meridian Naval Air Station. Sergeant Major Ruiz, I understand that you have recently visited the Meridian Naval Air Station. At the base, it has both a Navy and Marine mission. Last year in the FY25 budget hearing, I raised the fact that there was an important barrack repair project there on the facility, and proud to say that based upon calling attention to that, the project has been moved up into the FY26 budget cycle. Planning is already underway for that. And so my question is, not just for the project there at the Meridian Naval Air Station, but for all of our military installations. How do we ensure that the throughput of students at those facilities is not adversely impacted during times of major repairs, during times of renovation, particularly where we have facilities where things such as temporary housing, modular structure, the renovation of other buildings are not either able to take place or not able to take place easily. And so just wanted to get from both of you your thoughts on, again, making sure that we're not throttling the throughput of students during these times of major renovations or repairs.
Congressman, yes, thank you for that. I did visit down there, and I absolutely loved it. And I loved it because it doesn't, I'm just never, I guess I'm just tired, I'm not going to be surprised anymore of what Marines can do with so little, really. They just really get after it. Although this is a Navy project, we're working very close with our shipmates to ensure that those buildings get refurbished. What I would hope, like we have in other places, is that we have the ability today to not just stop the entire building from being lived on, and wing by wing, we're able to work by refurbishing room by room, and therefore reducing the stress on the Marines, moving them to an even worse place while the entire barracks gets rebuilt. I've seen it done in Camp Lejeune. I've seen other places where the modular structures come into play, and we move Marines there while we do the entire building. So I will work closely with our Navy shipmates here to ensure that hopefully we're able to do that so we don't lose track and momentum on those young folks who we desperately need in the Fleet Marine Forces today. Those gaps are real, and we are not any less busier than we ever have been before. So the faster I can get into my formations, the better we can get after warfighting.
Master Chief?
Congressman Guest, So we use data and analytics to help us solve our recruiting problems. We'll continue to use data and analytics and mitigations to make sure we're getting all those people as we recruit through Recruit Training Command, then pushed on through the rest of their accession training. So Naval Education Training Command has used data and analytics to understand what that throughput needs to be, where we need to increase capacity in those schoolhouses, increase capacity in their living accommodations, anything necessary so that we do not end up with a bottleneck. Wherever they find problems, we come up with mitigation strategies, much as Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps was explaining. If we need to, we'll move over into other facilities. We'll take over permanent party housing if necessary, and move permanent party personnel to another location, wherever we have to make sure that we accommodate our session training and we don't end up with a bottleneck. You know, back to Sergeant Major's point, so we get them back out to the fleet as quickly as we can.
Yes, sir. Last question for you, Sergeant Major. The Marine Corps has the Barrack 2030 initiative. And just want to ask if you can just generally talk about that initiative, and then also, and a little bit more in-depth, talk about how the Marine Corps is working with Navy leadership to improve housing that may not be necessarily on a Marine Corps installation, but where Marines are being housed at Navy installations. And so I will ask you if you would mind answering that question, and then once I have that answer, Mr. Chairman, I would yield back.
Congressman, thank you for that. Barracks 2030 is the Commandant's vision. Although it's labeled barracks, sir, it's about infrastructure. And it is about, I think what the GA report did for us is we were able to start from a place of data that I know exactly where in the globe I need to put the funding that we get from you and use it effectively and more efficiently. And so, because we know exactly our problem areas and we can more intelligently put it to work. In anywhere that Marines live, we work hand in hand with our Army buddies, or it doesn't matter, because the senior enlisted leader and the commander of those bases, they're responsible. And so they get after ensuring that the overall well-being of those service members under their command does not matter what uniform they wear, because from that, it produces a better version of that soldier, airman, whatever you have it, because all of us are in one team, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Madam Ranking Member, for this hearing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your service. Thanks for the time you took last week to visit with me and others. I have had the incredible privilege of serving on the House Armed Services Committee and serving on that committee's Quality of Life panel. And many of you came before us last year to talk about quality of life. And I'm privileged to be on this committee and this subcommittee to be able to take all of those lessons learned and apply them on the MilCon side. I also want to say I have the incredible privilege of representing Fort Bliss, which is one of our nation's premier military installations, and working with leadership there over my fourth term in Congress has been the highlight of my service. So I'm grateful to all of you for your leadership as well, and everything that you do to help inform our decisions. I've been really alarmed by the mass firings, deep cuts to personnel, but also the year-long CR, which has a direct impact on our nation's military, on leadership's ability to plan ahead, on the impact it has on our contractors who depend on their ability to plan for the future and to have some stability. I really hope that Congress understands the negative impact on our military every time there is a CR. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. Thank you for allowing me. I'm going to focus on the Army. So Sergeant Major Waymer, you and I had a great conversation. As we talk about our MilCon obligations and the backlog and the incredible need that leaders like you relay to us, we have to figure out better ways to stretch the dollar and be more efficient with the funding that we provide. And there was a mention a few minutes ago about data. Data is so important. And I can tell you some of the data that I've seen locally. When we look at MilCon investments at Fort Bliss and we compare them to non-MilCon investments, but regular investments, either via the university for housing, and compare that to military housing, or local government's investment in healthcare, building hospitals, versus what the federal side spends on building hospitals. There's a real opportunity for us to find more efficiency. The data I have seen demonstrates that we're spending up to 5 times more money through federal spending on similar infrastructure projects than what local governments are spending. And so there's great opportunity for us to do more and to learn from that and to be innovative. And Sergeant Major, you and I talked specifically about integrating intergovernmental service agreements for major military construction, scaling up privatized barracks construction, land lease for industry to facilitate construction of non-military facilities like childcare development centers or administrative office buildings. We also know in Fort Bliss, really cool, innovative projects like 3D printed barracks. We really have a great opportunity here. Sergeant Major, can you speak to the utility of implementing more creative mechanisms to meet our military construction needs, especially at mobilization force generation installations like Fort Bliss?
Yes, Congresswoman, let me look at that clock real quick. There's a lot there. Thank you for the meeting we had. It was fantastic, and I really do appreciate your energy and others' energy when it comes to helping us find creative solutions during things like CR. There, I said it, I can get it out of the way. But also where we are with our MilCon and MilCon reform that we really do need some assistance with. Like any good organization, we have to look internally ourselves first, right? We can't just immediately ask for legislation assistance, although there's some space there where we could use some help. But we also have to look at like our own force protection. We've added some crazy force protection measures that are a bit legacy, in my opinion, and others, before we closed off our installations. But we're still paying for those additional costs. Some of our construction costs have increased 50%. Every state's a little bit different. I don't really want to talk labor laws and agreements, but that's a factor in this also. We can't even get construction workers onto the installations because of their federal records, and so they're continually changing the construction workers, and so you have delays, and I could go on and on. But I guess I would like to say creative solutions are fantastic, and we're never going to stop working with you and anyone else that's willing to help us in the Corps of Engineering that space. But really, a lot of those are Band-Aids in I think, to true MilCon reform. So I love to work with you on this in the future.
Count on it. That will be a priority for me. It is a priority for me, not just Army, but across service lines, because as we see budget constraints going forward, and we compare those constraints for our inability to be creative and thoughtful and strategic in terms of our reforms and our creative approaches, it's those families who end up living in subpar conditions, or our active duty service members who have to deal with the inadequate responses. So when I spoke with each and every one of you, I mentioned that as a priority. That is something my team and I are really going to dig into. Really appreciate your collaboration. Again, appreciate your time today and your service to our nation. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for being with us this afternoon. I keep hearing the phrase from my military friends, on time and on target. Well, my time is only 5 minutes, so if you could keep your answers fairly short, that would be really helpful, to be respectful of my colleagues who still have questions they'd like to ask. Master Chief, I want to start with you. My colleague and I, Chrissy Houlihan, worked to extend parental leave for our service members. And we realize that sometimes it is a challenge for our service members to be able to take that leave within a 1-year time frame. We are looking to extend that to a 2-year time frame. Could you talk a little bit about the benefit that your service members could have by extending that time and how it would be easier for you to manage the workflow?
Congresswoman, I appreciate the question, but I really appreciate your willingness to engage into this conversation, because I do believe that if we could expand that to 2 years, or have some conversation we could figure out how to get there, it would be extremely beneficial. It's very challenging for someone to execute parental leave on top of their normal leave that they accrued through a year, all within inside that 1 year.
So that flexibility would be helpful to
It
you.
would be extremely helpful. There you go. I'll be succinct. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone agree with that the 2-year time frame would be helpful to being able to manage that workflow? I see a lot of heads nodding. Thank you for that. I want to say, Chief Master Flassie, thank you for the phone call. We had a great conversation. We talked a lot about infrastructure, and one of the things that you alerted me to was that you have a lot of buildings that are currently vacant, 1,200 to be exact. Is that correct?
Yes, Congresswoman. That's
And my understanding is that the DoD demolition budget is $75 million for all of the branches. Is that correct?
Ma'am, that sounds accurate.
Do all of the branches have, maybe not Space Force since they're fairly new, but do all of you have buildings that are currently vacant that you would like to have as part of a demolition project but cannot because the funding's not there? Sergeant Major.
We do, Congresswoman.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I think that we need to highlight that because what happens is, it was mentioned earlier, there's a 10-to-1 return on investment for demolishing these buildings. It's taking, I believe, resources away from your branches to be able to upkeep these facilities so that you can actually perform your missions. And so I want to encourage our folks that when we're looking at our appropriations package to potentially increase that so that we can raise some of these buildings, take the workload off of your plates, and allow us to continue to really focus on the mission at hand. Let me pivot slightly. Chief Master Sergeant Flassie and/or Master Chief Honey, you talked a little bit about childcare, and that's something that I know I've been interested in. I had the opportunity to do a bipartisan sort of swap with my colleague Sarah Jacobs from San Diego, and there were two things that really were eye-opening to me in visiting her district, and that is, it's expensive to live in San Diego if you were a service member, and there was virtually no childcare opportunities for those service members that are living on base. Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned in your testimony that you have the highest number of individuals that are using childcare services on naval installations currently. We need to continue to work at that. But is there something different that you've done to get those numbers up? And then if Chief Master Flassie wants to expand on that.
Congresswoman, yes. One of the things that we've done to really draw down on our wait list, besides building the facilities and staffing them, is that we really are encouraging the use of fee assistance and allowing our service members to find adequate child care in the community, so that we're not continually fighting with the local community for that same staffing. That's quickly alleviated a lot of our wait list, and it's helped us solve this problem much quicker.
Perfect. Chief Master.
Thank you, ma'am. Similar in the Air Force, we have, first of all, improved staffing, which is really one of our constraints. Sometimes it's not a capacity problem with infrastructure, it's staffing. And we've gone from 72% to 86% staffed across the Air Force in the last 3 fiscal years, and due in no small part to some of the reimbursement incentives that we're able to offer now all employees. It used to be direct care only, but we have a 100% reimbursement rate for child care for a dependent of one of our employees in childcare facilities. So that's great, and I think we're implementing that across all services now. The community-based childcare fee assistance, we've got 7.8 thousand children enrolled in those community-based fee assistance, which is a great force multiplier for us, and it's win-win for our local communities, where we can help with the local economy by supporting the local economies in which our airmen live and work. And it also, that fee assistance, and to the tune for the Air Force, is around $33 million last year. So providing that incentive provides our airmen the ability to seek quality care that's equivalent to on base when we do have constraints with our CDCs. It's been really helpful. We have over 400 homes in the family child care program, and our Air Force offsets the fees and certification process for service members' families to get certified to watch children in their own home. So another win-win with spousal employment,
Yes.
as well as child care for your own family, primary care provider, keeping their family in, and it helps with our 24/7 mission for our airmen that work off-duty hours.
Thank you for that. I appreciate your succinct comments, and with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Mize. Good demonstration of how this should have been run.
Thank you.
Mr. Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to everyone. I particularly want to thank our Marines and sailors. I have the great honor to represent Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, and I have visited, and I'm very grateful for all the leadership on base. There's a lot of progress being made with limited resources, but still far too many of the barracks are run down. They need a lot of help, and we want to do all we can to help as part of the Barracks 2030 initiative. You certainly have my commitment to do that for as long as I have the honor to serve, to do everything we can for, they don't call it quality of life. They say operational necessity, which I think is right. Call it readiness, call it, whatever we need to get the job done to make sure that people have a clean and safe place to live. I wanted to ask about rising costs in the context of the Barracks 2030 initiative, specifically things like construction costs. And Sergeant Major Ruiz, thank you for the time that you spent with me the other day. To what extent, as the construction costs have gone up, does that change the approach of the Marine Corps? Do you have to focus on, only implementing part of Barracks 2030 as opposed to the original plan? Can you comment more on the impact of construction costs?
Sir, thank you for your time earlier in the week. Absolutely. And I think what I'll say is that we labeled it Barracks 2030 because we were in a hurry, right, at the beginning of our Commandant's tenure to get after getting our infrastructure correct. And now, as the budgets develop, it may slip, right? So although this was never to be a one fit-up issue, we can get things up and running in one fit-up. Is a multiple fit-up endeavor. The Marines that are serving today may not likely ever see a brand new building go up in their first contract of their service. And so, to the credit of our Commandant, even through these budget conversations, he continues to tell the leadership that we will find the money and we will invest into the operational need of getting after the responsibility we have to house the Marines in the manner that's deserving their excellence, sir. So,
Thank you, Sergeant Major. I was told, as I mentioned to you, just on Camp Pendleton, over 120 buildings, roughly half of them need to be completely redone or torn down altogether at a cost of over $1.2 billion. It's just for one base. So question for any of you, have any of you done any sort of analysis on the impact, I'm going to use the T word, of tariffs on construction costs as it pertains to your plans? No. Nobody? Nobody.
I would say the Corps of Engineer, I know, has been paying attention to this. I mean, I won't speak for them, but I will say we are taking a look at this. It does affect every one of our projects in the sense of the availability of equipment for the projects.
What sorts of stuff do you import that might be more expensive as you look at the portfolio of projects? Is it materials? Is it just to put a,
It's a little bit of everything, Congressman. A past one we had prior to the T word was solar panels. There was only so many places that we were able to purchase solar panels, and so we had to request an exception, or that project was just going to sit and languish and not be completed. And you can imagine a project that's been a multi-year project, and we're waiting on solar panels to finish it, close it, and occupy it. And so I mean that's one from the past that I'm aware of. I don't think we have the analysis for current effects based off tariffs, but I know the Corps is paying attention closely.
very good, and hopefully you're conducting that analysis, and I really hope that as you develop it, that you share it with us. You know, our hope is to be as helpful to you as possible, but we need you to be transparent with us as we seek to help. The cuts are the other thing I want to mention. A couple of my colleagues talked about this. So same question for Sergeant Major Ruiz is, you know, this 8% budget cut, how does that impact the Marine Corps ability just to implement the barracks improvement plans that you have on the books, and what additional resources might you need?
Yes, sir. As I stated earlier, we began 6 years ago on a very huge endeavor to transform the Marine Corps. So we got really light, and what I would offer now is that it's not just should the budgets develop in maybe a downward trend. It won't be just barracks and infrastructure. It will be the inability to pay for bonuses, and retention may be affected because we have incredibly talented Marines in our formations that are needed to stay for the next fight. And if they may see that, hey, I waited my turn to get a bonus because I did what I was supposed to do, and now I'm here at an E5 getting ready to recover a bonus and stay, and it's not available to them, they may decide to walk away. So although our retention numbers, even this year, we're already 100% and climbing for the goal of the year. I'm not looking to break that momentum, Congressman, and I'm looking to have that available in the meal purse.
Thank you. And I'm over time, but I just want to sincerely thank all of you for the work that you're doing. You know, I think all of us on this subcommittee are here to help you in every single way that we can. So with that, I'll yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all, gentlemen, for your time here today. And I really appreciate the work that you all do on behalf of the hundreds of thousands of young men and women that put their faith in their leadership, their chain of command to take care of them, and you all do that magnificently. For sake of time, I do want to dive a little bit into retention and recruitment. I brought this up in previous hearings in past years. The Army and the Marines, both of our sergeant majors addressed it, so just for sake of time, I'll limit to you two. But Sergeant Major Ruiz, Marine Corps, it looks like everything is going very well from what you were just sharing there, but you exceeded your 2024 goals and retention, which, as we know, retention is just as important as bringing them in. If we can't keep them, then we're going to have problems down the line. And then so far through fiscal year 25, you're at 98% of first-term retention and 108 in subsequent. So sounds like you've got everything going well. If there's more to that, I'd love to come back and hear what still may concern you. But Sergeant Major Weimer, I want to dive a little bit more into your testimony. You had shared that you had a goal for fiscal year 24 of 55,000. You all finished the year at 55,150. So you squeaked that one over the goal line, which sounds good. But you know, on closer look, you also shared that the retention was 52,289 for fiscal year 24. I'm not sure what the goal was, but the goal for 25 is 54,800. So I don't know if you were short of the mark on the retention. But, you know, there was a military.com article last month, and I understand it's the press, and trust me, there's a lot of things that the press doesn't always get right, and I see it day to day, but I want to share a little of that and just kind of get your comment on it. The article was titled, "The Army is Losing 1/4 of Soldiers in the First 2 Years of Enlistment." So pretty big drop-off after we get them in the door. They further unpack that, and there's conversation about the pool of eligible recruits out there. We get that. We've had these conversations here before. Only 23% of 17 to 24-year-olds are eligible to serve in our military. Only 8% are eligible for a clean enlistment. That scares the heck out of me, that 92% of kids in America couldn't serve in the military even if they wanted to. But within the Army last year, waivers doubled from 8,400 in 2022 to 17,900 last year, so more than double the waivers. Most of those were medical waivers. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Were these fitness standards? Was it obesity? Or there are other underlying conditions? I know that there's a greater ability to find out a recruit's medical history now coming in that we may not have had before. If they'd lied to you before, that you weren't going to find out until it manifested. But concerning to me, last year there were 1,045 that were recruited, that were brought in with misdemeanor waivers. But worse than that, 401 with felony convictions, which was 4 times the amount from 2022. I do appreciate that none of those were for sexual violence, but one question, I'm curious, what kind of convicted felons are we allowing in? And how do you explain that to moms and dads whose sons and daughters are going off to know they're going to be sharing the bunks with convicted felons? That's kind of not what we promise in the recruiting commercials. But how do we make the argument that we're not lowering standards if we barely squeak by the goal and we see the number of people who haven't traditionally met the standards, or bringing in criminals? So I'll stop there and give you a chance to unpack that a little bit for me.
Thank you, Congressman, for that. There's a lot there. I'll try to touch on a little bit of all of it. We met our goal last year. We absolutely did. Future Soldier Prep was an important part of that. But not everybody that goes to Future Soldier Prep passes Future Soldier Prep. I think it's important to understand the standard hasn't changed. Future Soldier Prep gives our sons and daughters, I have to be careful how I say that, it's our sons and daughters, an opportunity to potentially serve, because based off of blame COVID, blame something, they just didn't have the propensity that we've had in the past. I don't want to be too accusative there to our sons and daughters, but that has been incredibly successful. But they don't all make it out of Future Soldier Prep. But we do invest in them and then send them home. To the felony comment, because I want to make sure I don't run out of time on that one, I'll take that one for the record, because that one's new to me. But military.com
I'm just reporting what
new to
was
me.
in the article, but that's what they said. Basically, your felony, it was
I'll take that
quadruple
one,
what it had
sir.
been 2 years before. Okay.
I'll take that one. That one stings a little more than the rest of that, because I agree with you, especially with a daughter that'll be commissioned here in 2 years. This year's mission, just as U.S. Army Recruiting Command says, we're crushing this year. We raised it to 61,000, and we are exceeding where we were last year, on goal to surpass our recruiting mission of 61, with potentially one of the largest depths, delayed entry, just like my Air Force teammate down here, one of the largest delayed entries we've seen in decades. So recruiting's going really well right now. I'll finish with retention. Retention is not about contracts. For us in the Army, we met our retention goal of over 114% last year. We don't set 100% of retention as a goal for us. We set a very specific mission and then evaluate ourselves. Not all soldiers are going to make it through their first term. That is just statistically factual, decades of data.
I've been to Captain's Mast enough with young sailors to know that too. So
yes, and it's okay. It's not always UCMJ that gets young troopers either. Sometimes it's just the lifestyle in the military is just not for them. We help them transition out. But I will say the first and second year comments in that article, the statistics are no different than anything we've seen in the past. So it is not a Future Soldier Prep new data point seeing first-time soldiers fail at a higher rate.
All right, I appreciate that. And for all of you, if as we see these retention or the recruitment numbers going up, let's make sure that if there have been places like high school education, other things where we've made concessions in the past, we know historically that doesn't work well in the long run. I'd love to see us tighten those standards back up again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Alford, you're back to clean up.
All right, let's do it. Thank you. Everyone ready for lunch? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that, and our distinguished witnesses for being here. As representatives of our military senior enlisted ranks, you have a direct pulse on the everyday experiences of our service members and their families, the challenges they face, and the sacrifices they make. We have a duty to ensure that those who defend our great nation have a quality of life that reflects the values of their service, from housing conditions to child care. We must identify where we're failing and take action to fix it. We cannot underserve those who have sacrificed and continue to sacrifice for us. Missouri's 4th Congressional District is home to 2 great bases, Whiteman Air Force Base and Fort Leonard Wood, 2 critical DoD installations that embody the heart of our military readiness and resilience. I've heard firsthand from service members about the difficulties they face, and I want to make sure that we try to get to some answers, how to fix things. As a former member of the Armed Services Committee, I also sit on the Quality of Life panel under the direction of General Bacon, and we made significant gains in the 2025 NDAA and a big increase in pay for lower-level enlisted, a restoration of basic allowance for housing. We were instrumental in getting $144 million for new AIT barracks at Fort Leonard Wood, better child care access, and more mental health support. My first question to Sergeant Major Weimer, you mentioned the Army Future Soldier Prep Course. It's been a success in channeling, in getting more recruits into Fort Leonard Wood in particular. We're having 5 new companies. Talk about the level of success in particular for this program, why it's important.
Thank you for that, Congressman. And by the way, Fort Leonard Wood, they call it Fort Lost in the Woods, but I don't think that gives it, it's not a
We're
fair.
trying to get away from that,
Yeah,
sir.
it is a gem.
Yeah.
Every time I go there, I understand why people just keep retiring there and becoming members of the community. So thank you for that. Future Soldier Prep has been instrumental. There's currently, I think it's 33,500-ish sons and daughters that have gone through Future Soldier Prep. And every time I go down there, if you haven't had an opportunity to go visit either Fort Jackson or down at Benning, please do. We're meeting these young kids where they're at. And for many of them, they just want an opportunity to meet the standard. It's a little, it'll tug on your heartstrings. I'll just tell you that.
Well, there's a nasty rumor going around that this program could end. Have you heard any talk about that at the Pentagon or anywhere else?
No, in the Army, this program, we may throttle the program. Like, we need to use the program more at times, and then there's times we may not. And so you may see the Army, as we continue to meet our recruiting goals, exceed our recruiting goals, you may see us turn it up or turn it down a little bit based off that requirement.
Thank you. Chief Master Sergeant Ruiz, thank you for coming to my office. Had a great conversation with you, in particular about mental health issues. Would you repeat some of the challenges that the Marine Corps is facing now when it comes to mental health?
How do you like that, Jim? Chief Master Sergeant. All right. Congressman, thank you for that. Excellent discussion on the ability for a young service member today who does exactly what we tell them to do, which is you're having an issue, seek help. And because the medical providers may not be in the volume that we need them at different places around the Corps, around our bases and stations, they must go out in town. And out in town, we needed to take TRICARE to the previous conversations about TRICARE, sir. If they're not available, then it just exacerbates the problem. Now I'm waiting, if I'm that young person, 45 days to 60 days to finally get the one appointment that I need down the line. And you did exactly what we told you to do, which was go get help, right? And so I can't solve that problem, sir. I'm looking for you to help us bring attention to that, and I love that everyone is tracking and pushing for that. What I can control is what's inside my formations, and that's why Marine Corps Total Fitness for us it's a way to get after the resiliency of our force, strengthening their soul. So thank you for allowing me to do that, sir.
Well, thank you. And with my 25 seconds left, I would like to thank your wife for being here today. Spouses are so important. Family is so important to service. And thank you, ma'am, for being here today. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, and I'm sorry we went long, but quite honestly, not too long. And I really like to hear from you guys, and so I'm kind of lax on you. Now, when I get the big boys in here, I'll keep them on the level. But you guys get to tell the stories that make us actually realize what's going on. So thank you for what you've done for us. You are the people that keep your branch of the military going. God bless you for doing it. And we wish you the best. And with that, I'll adjourn. Thank you.